I'd like to welcome you to BeMoreNews.com, the news before the news, where we uncover the truth. GCOMM Media, Mr. Hassan Giordano. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Don.
Good. All in the news this week. One, I've learned of the formation of the Fannie Lou Hamer group down in Prince George's County. I understand, according to Carletta Fellows, the group is about a year old. I know they're out in the forefront regarding redistricting, the governor's map, its impact on the federal and state districts, meaning the congressional districts as well as the state legislative districts. Here in Baltimore, or greater Baltimore, at least in northwest Baltimore County, we understand that Ken Oliver, the councilman, the only African American Baltimore County councilman, has lost Woodlawn. There have been a number of articles, Baltimore Sun, also in the Washington newspapers this week regarding redistricting. And the general consensus is that African Americans in Maryland are not pleased with Governor O'Malley's map as it relates to black jurisdictions and the retention of power. And with that backdrop, you wrote an article this week as it relates to redistricting. What saith you, Hassan Giordano?
Well, I think the Fannie Lou Hamer PAC, Political Action Committee up in Prince George's, I think they did a wonderful job in seeing the foresight into this process, and they began early. They actually submitted maps to the state in which average citizens and groups could do, as well as legislators, which I think we'll see multiple legislators introduce maps come Monday, which begins the special session on this congressional redistricting. One of the best maps that I've seen thus far is by Senator Joe Getty from the 5th District. He's from Baltimore and Carroll counties. He's a Republican, but he's introduced a map that reflects the population growth here in Maryland. Maryland has grown over 9% in the past decade, and that's the reason why we draw maps every 10 years is based off the census data that we get throughout the country.
Noting population shifts specifically.
Absolutely. And that 9% in Maryland, Donnie, has been all minority. All minority. And with that, and to be quite honest, quite a bit of that was Hispanics as well as African Americans.
So, one thing, we're certainly looking at a majority minority state in the years to come.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's what Senator Getty's map says is okay. Well, let's be fair in it. We're not going to worry about being a political map like we've seen come from Governor O'Malley and the Democrats, that a lot of Democrats aren't even pleased with. And it's basically a political map to say, you know what, we have a 6-2 majority here in Maryland as far as Democrat Republican. They're trying to strengthen that up for congressional runs in the future and make that 7-1 a male dominated, a white male dominated district map where Joe Getty and other legislators such as Donna Edwards in the 4th want to secure their own districts. In the 4th and the 7th, we have Elijah Cummings and Donna Edwards, the only two African Americans
In Congress.
in Congress and from Maryland.
From Maryland.
And so actually Joe Getty takes the 3rd district, which we see part of that is in the Baltimore region, takes it out of Baltimore, puts it up in Prince George's, down in Prince George's and Montgomery County, and actually gives us the possibility of a 3rd district because it'll be 65% minority based. That means we have the greater likelihood of having 3 minorities in out of the 8 districts here in Maryland. So I don't see how the Legislative Black Caucus could not stand up behind this bill come Monday.
Have they said anything?
They have not.
That's currently headed by State Senator Catherine Pugh.
Catherine Pugh. Now they have said that on Saturday they were to convene and meet about the maps that were given by different parties.
Did they give a map?
They I've seen a map online that they have not promoted this map yet, Donnie, and I don't know to what extent it goes beyond. It looks almost similar to the one that we've seen given by the governor's redistricting advisory committee,
Why
which is
hasn't
called
it?
GRAC.
Do you know why it has not been submitted?
I do not. I've tried to reach out to them. I haven't gotten any contact. Now, I can tell you that the vice president of the Legislative Black Caucus and Delegate Aisha Braveboy from Prince George's County, who is the chair of the redistricting committee there, has been very outspoken against the governor's map. And I believe that she probably has the greater input on it, and she probably had most of the input that we see in that map that was introduced by the Legislative Black Caucus. But again, Monday morning we go into session in Annapolis. Special session should last about 3 days or so. Most people are anticipating. But I think that if we allow for the map that's being introduced now to get, if we allow the Democrats to get away with this map, we're going to suffer from African Americans, meaning, and people, especially minorities in the state of Maryland. And so I think that we really need to concentrate on this effort because, like you said in the beginning, this is congressional. Now, what it is a lot of legislators are scared to stand up against the governor because then he has to draw their lines for their legislative district maps to come in January.
Well, I don't understand why African Americans ought to be afraid. African Americans have been the most loyal voting bloc as it relates to the Democratic Party. Is that not true?
Well, not only that, we are half of the Democratic Party.
What is
We are
that?
the majority of the Democratic Party in America.
What is this fear coming from? Fear of what?
To be quite honest, Donnie, I really couldn't tell you. I mean, they have a 44, 45 member voting bloc in Annapolis. And when you couple that with the GOP of this party, that's a minority, but coupled with the African American legislators, they have a majority to stop because what we got to understand is this. The governor needs a super majority vote in both the House and the Senate to pass these congressional maps. They won't have that if the GOP and the African American legislators stand up in both chambers. Absolutely.
I mean, basketball players are much better at negotiating. I mean, I think back to the days of Curt Flood. Recently, there was a documentary on cable about Curt Flood and how if it weren't for efforts of people like him, these mega athletes today wouldn't be mega athletes. They wouldn't make these multi-million-dollar contracts. Similarly, there was a time when African Americans in this state stood up. A number of noted African Americans, a couple in the Mitchell family come to mind. Thurgood Marshall comes to mind. Kwesi Mfume comes to mind.
And that's the biggest one. Kwesi, if you look at Kwesi's district, when he was in the 7th district, in 1990 they tried to do this to him. He said, oh, absolutely not. I'm going to make sure that the 7th district stays black. Elijah Cummings has been a chump. He has not said nothing in 2000s, and he has not said nothing. Matter of fact, he's came out and praised this map by Governor O'Malley when other blacks are looking at him like, what are you smoking? I mean, what don't you understand about this? We're losing population, and you're saying that this is the best map for African Americans.
Congressman Elijah Cummings was the most popular African American legislator in the state of Maryland.
Who told you that lie? Who told you that lie? Come on, Donnie, be for real. That man has not stood up for African Americans and the population and the strength of African Americans since I've been in politics over the past 15 years. So I don't know who told you that lie, but when we look at just the past, look at how Kwesi stood up for his own district. Look at the 7th district now. It's 40% Howard County white. And he's saying that's going to be the strongest African American district in the country? Are you kidding me? Come on now.
So what has happened to African American leadership here in the state of Maryland? And let's, primarily here in the city of Baltimore, given we just concluded an election with 4 challengers and all 4 African American challengers, or at least initially. I mean, it was Carl Stokes. Of course, he got back down to the city council race. But for mayor, Frank Conaway, Catherine Pugh, Otis Rowley, yet none of them clearly demonstrated any leadership to get the others to get behind them. What is the state of black leadership in Baltimore, in greater Baltimore?
I think the turnout in the elections showed the state of the black leadership here in the city and in the state. 23% historic low turnout, and it wasn't because the voters were uneducated. It is we just don't have leadership. There's no product to go out there and buy.
Too many choices.
So why should I go out there and vote? Not only too many choices, not enough quality choices. That's the problem. They felt like they were picking from the lesser of 3 or 4 evils in this case, not 2 evils. And so at the end of the day is we have to begin to offer up a better quality of product in order to allow for our consumers, which are the voters, to come out there and be a part of the electoral process. Right now, they just don't see it, Donnie.
Here in Baltimore, and I know I'm stretching you, we only asked you for a few minutes, but since we have you, we have to seize the day, carpe diem. two legislators are, at least two, are doing write-in campaigns. Belinda Conaway, Shannon Sneed. Any thoughts?
Um,
Shannon Sneed, by the way, has Antonio Glover supporting her
who,
write-in efforts.
yeah, which I think that it would have been a lot better if Hattie had did that and Kimberly Armstrong had did that and the other brother who did that during the primary. She would have won easily, hands down. She only lost by 43, and they combined for about 1,100 votes. But
Similar to the mayor's race, so many challengers, the incumbent wins.
absolutely, but I think that with that, you have Michael Johnson in the ninth as well. The greatest possibility for write-in will be Shannon Sneed in the 13th
More so
district.
than Belinda Conaway.
Belinda Conaway has name recognition, but the bottom line is she had that in the primary. She was the incumbent in the primary, and they still voted her out. So I just don't see them changing their mind in 45 days and say, "Oh, okay, I've come to Jesus all of a sudden, and I'm going to put you back in office." I don't see that. Shannon Sneed was a very popular non-incumbent who was challenging the incumbent Warren Branch, who only lost by 43. I think that her name recognition, the strength behind the communities that love her and the people that love her in that 13th district, combined with citywide efforts of candidates that lost, as well as people from Northwest Baltimore and Park Heights to East and West Baltimore that are coming over there to help her, put money and energy behind her. I'm almost certain that Shannon Sneed can pull it out. However, the write-in candidacy is the hardest thing to pull off when it comes to campaigns. So because voters are lazy, they last thing they want to do is show up and push a button as it is, let alone put somebody's name, type somebody's name in. However, I think of all three of the candidates who have filed for a write-in, I think she is the greatest shot of victory.
And of course, she's going against the incumbent Warren Branch, often associated with lobbyist Bruce Bariano.
And a brother Talmadge Branch, who I want to see if he stands up here in Annapolis come Monday, because he's a part of that quote unquote leadership up there. So I'm almost certain that him and McFadden and the rest won't stand up for the African Americans in the state.
Why do we need such representation? I mean, it seems like we have none. I mean, representation is supposed to bring you some pork back, bring back the bacon. It seems like we keep conceding, acquiescing our power, giving away our power, selling our birthright.
Well,
I'm very distraught by this.
Well, they go to Annapolis. They give you a few bond bills here and there, which is like $5,000-$10,000 things to go to community centers.
Does it equal our numbers?
No, absolutely not. They go up there and they give
So
you.
it's
They
crumbs.
they come back here and they give us a few scholarships. And they feel
But it's
as though
crumbs
keep-
compared to what we deserve.
Absolutely. When we are the 52% of the majority of the Democratic Party here in the state of Maryland, and they still take you for granted and write a map like we see today, because basically what they're doing is the minority vote has been diluted only to kind of support a white majority Democratic Party that says basically black people stay in your place and make sure you vote for us. That's all it is.
And as it relates to redistricting, you were on Larry Young's radio show earlier this week. Eartha Harris, Anthony McCarthy, some pretty politically astute individuals, and I sensed that former state senator Larry Young was equally distressed, troubled,
He
irked
Well, a lot of
about
people
this
say they are.
redistricting map.
Yeah, exactly. Coach was as well, and I challenged them to join me in Annapolis on Monday when the session starts, Tuesday and Wednesday during session, and let's call these people out. I challenge them that let's bring this back after the end, after it's all said and done. Come next week, let's come back and call out every legislator, whether they're favorable to you, whether they're Joan Carter Conway in the 43rd district, whoever they are. If they did not stand up for African Americans in an African American map in Annapolis and sold out to the machine, then we need to call them out next week.
I guess they will be pretty scared of your ink pen come next week. One final question. He's been around Greater Baltimore, Prince George's County. State Senator C. Anthony Muse. He's running for U.S. Senate. At least he's exploring the opportunity. And the initial feedback I got off of Facebook upon putting up an interview with him was, at least from the African Americans who replied, They wanted to know where they could go to help see Anthony Muse become a U.S. senator for Maryland. The first, and he would be the first, or he would be the only black in the Senate,
Yeah,
as you well know.
and he would be the first African American elected statewide here in the state independently, not a lieutenant governor that got off on some other white guy's name. But what I would say is that I wrote about C. Anthony Muse. He's a great senator from Prince George's County.
Originally from Baltimore,
Originally
Park
from
Heights.
Baltimore City, yeah, from my neck of the woods. I would definitely say that he's a individual that I wrote about, sparked a lot of debate, and people loved him. They responded in droves with him. I can say that being a part of the Kwesi Nkrumah's U.S. Senate campaign in '06, I saw that had it not been for the white Democratic establishment throwing knives at every corner at Kwesi, he would have won that race. He only lost by 3%.
Well, when you say white Democratic, white male dominated, you're talking about Governor Martin O'Malley, State Senate President Mike Miller, Speaker of the House Mike Bush.
Well, they are the leaders of it, absolutely. But the entire white establishment of the Democratic Party, at every turn, made sure that Kwesi Nkrumah was denounced and made it seem to African Americans that he could not win.
What's troubling is they call on him when they need to reach the African American community. As the Caminettes did out there in Baltimore County. But yet there's a scenario where, this guy Joe Harrison, for instance, after 12 years is seemingly being chased out of Dodge in Baltimore County, school superintendent.
And he was a great individual, 12 years, 3 terms that he served over there in Baltimore County. A great individual who I think that we need some of his leadership over here in Baltimore City in the school system. But I think C. Anthony Muse is an individual that he will not sell out his soul to the devil of the Democratic Party. I think that he will make a great challenge against Senator Ben Cardin next year in 2012's U.S. Senate race.
How can people follow you, Hassan Giordano of GCOMM Media?
They can go to gcommedia.com, GCOMMEDIA.com, or obviously you can see me on the Examiner, examiner.com/Baltimore, Hassan Giordano. You can Google me and find me, or call me in our offices at any time if you need any of your branding and marketing services, 443-473-6401.
Keep watching BeMoreNews.com, the news before the news, where we uncover the truth.